One of the things that I work with both groups and individuals on often has to do with the fact that men and women think differently. This is probably not a surprise to you. But we are actually wired differently biologically. And by the way, I want to acknowledge, bless you, I want to acknowledge the men who have joined us here today. And I want to say that nothing we're going to be talking about here today does not also apply to men, with the possible exception of menopause, but actually men go through their own version. So there's really nothing here, even though I'll be talking primarily about women, there is nothing here that does not apply to men. It just applies in a different way. So I had an interesting experience while I was preparing. As I said, as we all know, men and women think differently. Actually, the male brain and the female brain are different structurally. If you saw a shot, and I have actually a shot of a male brain and a female brain in the book, you would see that there are structural differences between them. Men tend to be wired biologically, neurologically, to focus on action and information. Women tend to be wired neurologically, biologically, to focus on connection and relationship. Opposite ends of the very same spectrum, both of them are essential. So while I'm getting ready for our time together today, I was reading a lot of things online, a lot of websites, a lot of blogs about horses and people's relationships with them. And I found, without exception, that everything I read that was written by a man talked about how to manage a horse, how to control a horse, how to coax more work out of a horse, how to keep them clean, how to feed them, things like that. The information. And all of that important information, by the way. But everything that I read that was written by a woman had to do with connecting with your horse, feeling close to your horse, feeling affection for your horse, feeling exuberant with your horse, and how to understand and be understood by your horse. And it was an extraordinary bit of evidence of this remarkable difference in perspective. Neither of them better than the other, but so different. We have so much we can learn from each other if we choose to. And that put me in mind of the fact that historically, there have been throughout, I think, every culture I know everything or anything about, there's no culture I know everything about, any culture I have ever studied has a huge range of myths and fairy tales and folklore and true stories about animals in cooperation with humans. Animals helping humans, working for humans and helping them get the job done, helping them reach their goals, protecting them, saving their lives, comforting them. Every culture has these stories. And I believe that this is because at a very deep level, we come into life with some sense of the fact that underneath the surface differences, there are commonalities between human beings and animals that we can work with and build on. Now, this awareness is largely unconscious in the general population. It's not unconscious for you all, but it's largely unconscious for most people, I would say. But it's still an awareness that's there. And the stories would not be written, the stories would not be told if we didn't have this awareness that indeed in some way we are connected. It is who you are as women that allows you to create the connections that you have, not only with people, but with your animals. And again, I believe most specifically with horses. So I want to just talk a little bit about those gifts because they shape the quality of your experience. All of these things we're talking about, compassion, healing, nurturing, comforting, all of those things fall into one or more of three basic categories or areas of what are called archetypal energy. Do you all know what archetypes are? This is a move a body part question. So so you know what archetypes are. So the gifts that we're talking about really can be divided up into one or more of three basic archetypal energies, and they're the energies that I refer to in depth in The Bitch, the Crone, and the Harlot, and that I am exploring beyond that in the next book, which is called Women as Leaders, Women as Healers. I want to talk about the archetypes for just a moment so that everybody is clear about what I'm referring to. The archetypes that these gifts of the feminine fall into and that are referred to in the book are the archetype of power. This is represented by the archetypal bitch. Now, we're going to talk about who the archetypal bitch is, and she starts with a capital B, not a small b, by the way. The archetypal energy of wisdom is represented by the crone, capital C, and the archetypal energy of sensuality and awareness is represented by the archetypal harlot. The archetypal harlot is the woman who has learned to live fully present in each moment of her life. This is a woman who has learned to live with her senses so open that she is constantly taking in a great deal more information than most people. She's the one who notices things that most people miss. Often they're the small things that, when noticed, become huge sources of information, of joy, of pleasure. Most people miss these things because they have become preoccupied, scattered in their attention, distracted. We are all pulled in so many directions that it's easy to spend our time, as a high percentage of people do, either focused on the past with either regret or nostalgia, or thinking about the future with either dread or happy anticipation. Somebody set that up. That was too good. So most people spend their time in one place or the other, in their thoughts, in the past, in the future, which means they're not really alive in their own moment, because the past and the future, neither of them exists. All we have, truly, is the present moment. And so the archetypal harlot has learned that when she lives with her senses open, and by the way, it's only through the senses that we learn. It's only through the senses that we take in information. There's no other way. When we allow our senses to be muted because we are distracted, because we are preoccupied, because our attention is scattered, our senses become dulled. When our senses are dulled, we simply cannot take in all the information that is constantly being offered to us, within us and around us. But she's learned to live safely with her senses open, which means she's constantly better informed than most people, and therefore better able to make wise choices.